The realm. Do you know what the realm is? It's the 1,000 blades of Aegon's enemies. A story we agree to tell each other over and over till we forget that it's a lie.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones Season 8 theory video. What I want to talk about today is actually my favorite theory of mine. Ever since I created my channel, I have made over 350 different videos about Game of Thrones. I have given my thoughts on pretty much every character that is still active in the show, but out of all those videos, this is the one I like the most. I was already very confident about this theory, but I have some more evidence that I think backs it up even more. Now, I do have to admit, most of this evidence was taken directly from the books, but I still think there is a very good chance it can happen in the show too. There is some foreshadowing for this in the television show as well. Not to mention, Dan and Dave did talk to George R.R. Martin about how his books will end. I know some of you have seen my other video about this theory, but even if you have, I still think you will like this video because I'm including some extra evidence my last video did not have. Before we get started, I do want to thank the sponsor of today's video. This video is sponsored by Squarespace, and whether you need a domain, a website, or even an online store, I would highly recommend that you check out Squarespace. Now, as you can see by the title of this video, I want to talk about what I think it will take to defeat the Night King for good. This is something that I think almost all of us have thought about. I know I have ever since the White Walkers were first introduced in the opening episode. Now, obviously, we did not see the Night King at that time, but I always wondered what it would take to stop the White Walkers. We know they can be killed by dragonglass and Valyrian steel weapons, but we still don't know what it will take to stop the Night King. Some fans assume you can kill the Night King by using those same weapons, but I don't think that's true. Since he is the leader of the White Walkers, I think it will take a very special weapon to stop him for good. Now, some of you might think a dragon can stop him, but I don't think that's the answer either. Not only did we see the Night King walk right through the dragon fire, but we also saw him kill a dragon, and he actually kind of made it look easy, so I highly doubt it would be a dragon that kills him. I still think one of our beloved characters will have to challenge him to 1 versus 1 combat. We know the Night King has a magical ice sword that hangs across his back. The one and only time we actually saw the Night King kill someone was when he killed the Three-Eyed Raven. That was when we finally saw the Night King use that magical ice sword. Now, since this is a Song of Ice and Fire, we will need that balance on the opposite side. In order for someone to defeat the Night King, they will need a magical sword made of fire. This was actually already foreshadowed in the second season of the show. During Melisandre's introduction, we saw a burning sword when she held the ceremony on the beach of Dragonstone. Now, how many of you actually think it's a coincidence that this is what we saw during Melisandre's introduction into the show? I believe we will see the same thing happen during Melisandre's final scene in the show. When we first meet Melisandre on the beach of Dragonstone, we can hear her say, "After the long summer, darkness will fall heavy over Westeros. Stars will bleed, the cold breath of winter will freeze the seas, and the dead shall rise in the north." In the ancient books, it's written that a warrior shall draw a burning sword from the fire, and that sword shall be Lightbringer.
In the ancient books, it's written that a warrior will draw a burning sword from the fire, and that sword shall be Lightbringer.
Basically, what that means is, after the long summer ends, the long night will fall over Westeros. In order for someone to defeat the dead and end the long night, they will need a burning sword that can bring the light back into Westeros. That's why the sword is called Lightbringer. It brings the light to the darkness. The only problem is you have to find the right characters to be able to create that sword. As you can see in that scene, Melisandre had a burning sword sticking into the chest of one of the statues on the beach of Dragonstone. At that time, Melisandre thought Stannis Baratheon would become Azor Ahai Reborn. Melisandre thought Stannis was the one that was meant to carry that sword into the darkness. They do need a burning sword, but Stannis is not the one that is meant to carry it. We begin to find out who is meant to carry that sword in the very last book that was released, which is A Dance with Dragons. I believe we get several big clues about who will become Azor Ahai Reborn. Only this character will have to stick the sword into a living heart to create Lightbringer. Melisandre was using those statues during the ceremony, but when the time comes for this sword to actually get created, someone will have to sacrifice theirself to get the sword to catch on fire. Now, I don't know how many of you saw my original video, but I believe Melisandre will have to sacrifice herself in order for the prophecy to come true. I think Melisandre now realizes this will have to happen, which is why she told Varys she will come back to Westeros one last time to die. It's already set in motion.
Oh, I will return, dear Spider. One last time.
My lady.
I have to die in this strange country.
I think we got one of the clues during Melisandre and Jon's last conversation together. This was when Jon exiled Melisandre from the north for sacrificing Shireen Baratheon. Jon said that Melisandre would be killed if she ever came back to the north, but it was what Melisandre said that I want to show you. This is where we get some of our hints.
I've been ready to die for many years. If the Lord was done with me, so be it, but he's not. You've seen the Night King, Jon Snow. You know the Great War is still to come. You know the army of the dead will be upon us soon. And you know I can help you win that war.
One of the very last things Melisandre says to Jon is, "I've been ready to die for many years." So we already know that Melisandre is prepared to die. She even knows she will die because that's what she told Varys the last time we saw her. But she also knows that she has one last thing to do. Melisandre told Jon she can help him defeat the Night King, but she never did say how she can defeat the Night King. So it's obvious Melisandre still knows something that we don't. She knows how to beat him, and she knows she will die. I think it will actually be Melisandre's sacrifice that enables them to stop the Night King. This is why she is ready to die, this is why she knows she will die, and this is why she knows she can help Jon defeat the Night King. After all the sacrifices Melisandre has done, it will be her final sacrifice that has the biggest impact. This whole time, all she needed to do was sacrifice herself to the right character for the prophecy to come true. Melisandre has even told us, death by fire is the purest death. Now let's take a look at some of the text. Let's see what the original Azor Ahai had to do to create Lightbringer. Make sure you look very closely at the words because we will see them again in some of the other chapters about Melisandre. I just want to take a look at what it says right at the moment the sword is stuck into Nissa Nissa's chest. It says, "Nissa Nissa," he said to her, for that was her name, "bare your breast." She did this thing, why I cannot say. And Azor Ahai thrust the smoking sword through her living heart. It is said that her cry of anguish and ecstasy left a crack across the face of the moon. Try to remember that text, because how it was worded is the key to Melisandre being Nissa Nissa. Now let's break it down sentence by sentence, that way I can show you that Melisandre is without a doubt Nissa Nissa. The first thing you need to understand is how the sword can catch on fire if it's stuck in Melisandre's heart. How would that actually make it catch on fire? Well, we have been told time and time again that Melisandre has a fire burning inside of her. There are a number of different quotes in the books that indicates this. Not only do they mention Melisandre has fire burning inside of her, but one of them just flat out says Melisandre is fire, and her hair is even blood and flame. We get another clue when Jon and Melisandre are riding in the elevator together. This is when Jon finds out how Melisandre is able to be at the wall without wearing heavy fur coats like all the men of the Night's Watch. Jon says, "You are not cold, my lady?" Melisandre laughs at this. She says, "Never." Then the ruby at her throat starts to pulse, in time with the beating of her heart. Melisandre says, "The Lord's fire lives within me, Jon Snow." This scene happens in the show and in the books. There is a good reason why we are told this. That's because we need to know Melisandre has fire burning inside of her. That way, when the sword is stuck into her heart, we will know why it catches on fire. This is actually shown right on Melisandre's very own banners. We have seen this symbol ever since Melisandre was introduced. Melisandre literally has a burning heart right on her flag. Now, one of the most fascinating clues in my opinion is when Jon thinks about the way Melisandre smells. Jon notices this at the same time Melisandre tells him she has a fire burning inside of her. Again, this is when they are riding in the elevator together. It says, "In the close confines of the iron cage, he was acutely aware of the Red Woman's presence. She even smells red. The scent reminded him of Mycon's forge, of the way iron smelled when red hot. The scent was smoke and blood, kissed by fire." This says Melisandre smells like a forge, which we all know that is where swords are created. The smell reminds Jon of Mycon's forge, the way iron smells when you melt it down and it turns red hot. The scent was smoke and blood. Melisandre smells like that because she is meant to have a sword forged inside of her. She already smells like that. Now let's take a look at another clue from the show. This is when Melisandre and Jon Snow are at Castle Black together. This happens during the scene when we see Melisandre try to seduce Jon. What I find interesting about this scene is Melisandre actually talks about her and Jon creating something together, and you can guess what she references. Melisandre says they can create light. I believe that is a reference to Lightbringer.
Do you feel my heart beating? There's power in you. You resist it, and that's your mistake. Embrace it. In our joining, there's power. Power to make life. Power to make light.
Did you notice what Melisandre did right before she said that to Jon? She bared her breast, which is what Nissa Nissa did right before Azor Ahai stuck his sword into her chest. Melisandre bares her breast. Then she talked about creating light. Okay, so let's go over what we know so far. Melisandre has told us she has a fire burning inside of her. Melisandre never gets cold, and Jon even notices she smells like a burning sword. Then, Melisandre tells Jon they can create light together. Melisandre also told Jon she can help him defeat the Night King, and she told Varys she will die next season. Are you starting to notice the connections here? Let's continue. Now let's go back to the prophecy. Let's take another look at that text. It says, Azor Ahai thrust the smoking sword through her living heart. Notice how it says living heart. It doesn't just say heart. Now let's take a look at what DAVOS says when he thinks about killing Melisandre. This is shortly after the battle at Blackwater Bay. Notice how he references Melisandre's heart. It says, I will cut the living heart from her breast and see how it burns. Not only does it reference a living heart just like the prophecy does, but it also references a burning heart. And this is directly connected to Melisandre. Now let's take a look at the prophecy again. This time I want to look at the last sentence. After the sword is stuck into her heart, it is said that her cry of anguish and ecstasy left a crack across the face of the moon. I want to focus on the word ecstasy. If you go through all 5 books that George R. R. Martin has released in A Song of Ice and Fire, you can only find the word ecstasy 5 times in all of those books. The very first time we see the word ecstasy in the books is during this prophecy, but the other times we see this word in the books are all references to Melisandre. That is not a coincidence, my friends. This is what it says in Melisandre's very own chapter. In fact, it's her one and only chapter so far. It says, the Red Priestess shuddered. Blood trickled down her thigh, black and smoking. The fire was inside of her, in agony, in ecstasy, filling her, searing her, transforming her. Now let's take a look at one of the other times we can see the word ecstasy in the books. This time it's describing the way Melisandre cries, and it sounds exactly like the way Nissa Nissa cried. This happens when Melisandre is giving birth to the shadow baby. This is what DAVOS notices. It says, blood ran down her thighs, black as ink. Her cry might have been agony, or ecstasy, or both. When Nissa Nissa cried, it says her cry was of anguish and ecstasy. When Melisandre cries, it says her cry was of agony or ecstasy. Like I said, these are the only times you can find that word used in all 5 books. So now that we know who Nissa Nissa is, let's take a look at who Azor Ahai is. Now if you remember, Melisandre originally thought Stannis Baratheon was Azor Ahai, but in the very last book that was released, we get a clue about who is really Azor Ahai. We find this out in Melisandre's one and only chapter thus far. When Melisandre looks into the fire, she prays for a glimpse of Azor Ahai, but the only thing R'hllor shows her is snow. Now look at the way George R. R. Martin wrote that sentence. The word snow is actually capitalized. That's because he is referencing a character's name, as in Jon Snow. He is not talking about the snow that falls from the sky. So, whenever Melisandre looks into the fire to see who Azor Ahai is, the only thing she can see is snow. We get another very good clue in the same book. This time it happens during one of Jon Snow's dreams. In this dream, it says Jon Snow is armored in black ice, and he has the burning red sword in his fist. This is why it's Jon Snow who notices Melisandre never gets cold, and he notices Melisandre smells like a burning red sword. George R. R. Martin is leaving these breadcrumbs all throughout Jon and Melisandre's chapters. There is a reason why it's Jon who notices these things. Now let's take a look at something else. In the books, Maester Aemon actually leaves Castle Black with Samwell Tarly. They travel to Old Town together when Sam goes to try to become a Maester. Now right before Maester Aemon leaves Castle Black, he gives Jon Snow a book. There is one section in the book that Maester Aemon really wants Jon Snow to read. He makes sure to leave a bookmark in that section he wants Jon to look at. When Jon opens the book to that section, it tells of the story about Azor Ahai and Nissa Nissa. When Jon reads the chapter about Azor Ahai and Nissa Nissa, we also get another clue that connects Melisandre and Nissa Nissa together. Let's see what it says. Lightbringer was never cold to the touch, but warm as Nissa Nissa had been warm. This means Nissa Nissa was never cold either, as in she must have had a fire burning inside of her too, just like Melisandre. The evidence almost becomes overwhelming once you actually step back and take a look at it all. Melisandre will come back to Westeros one last time to give the ultimate sacrifice. Not only did she say she is ready to die, but she also knows she will die. She told Jon she can help him defeat the Night King, and I think this is how she will accomplish that. The fire that's burning inside of Melisandre will consume Jon Snow's sword once he shoves it into her heart. Death by fire is the purest death. Let me know what you think about this updated video. Let me know if you think Melisandre is Nissa Nissa. Leave your thoughts down below. Before I go, I do want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. For those of you that don't know, you can use Squarespace to help build your own website. Like I said before, I used to think it was very difficult to create your own website, but Squarespace makes their service very easy to use and understand. They do have an all-in-one platform that even provides 24/7 customer support. If you were thinking about creating your own website, I would highly recommend that you go to squarespace.com for your first free trial. Then, once you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/talkingthrones to save 10% off your first purchase. Go to the description of this video to find their link. Thank you all very much. I hope everyone has a great day, and I hope to see you all come back when the final season begins in just a few days. Thanks for watching. I will see you soon. Bye.